Okay, so I think that's it. I think we're good to go. So
Okay.
go ahead, Catherine.
Sure, I will call the meeting to order. It is 2:01 p.m. And our next item on the agenda, well, actually, I do need to ask to add an agenda item, if that is okay. And that agenda item is an introduction of a new committee member. Everyone in favor of me adding that agenda item? Okay.
Okay, well then I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Brooke Sillaby to be a new member on the Grey County Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. Brooke recently relocated to Grey County from the Guelph area, where she was a member of the Accessibility Committee for the City of Guelph and for McMaster University's Social Work Department. She worked on a national standards committee to create national standards for service dogs in Canada. She's the chair of the Canadian Centre on Disability Studies, which is now known as, I'm not sure if it's Eviance or Eviance, but that organization focuses on disability research to enhance solutions that advance human rights and equity-focused decision-making in Canada. Brooke is looking forward to helping us improve our PDF accessibility, and she's interested in advocating for accessibility for all disabilities. So welcome, Brooke. We're so happy that you're joining us.
Yes, welcome, Brooke.
Thank you.
We look forward to working with you, Brooke. It's Catherine.
It's really nice to meet you. I look forward to working with you guys. It was really interesting working with the Guelph committee, and Grey County is so different in their, just even in the layout of the county. So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of things you guys work on and what are some of the challenges you guys are facing. I'm really looking forward to working with you all.
That is great, and welcome aboard, Brooke. We'll be looking forward to your expertise in the area as well. So the next item is declaration of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest? No, this is always an easy one to get past, isn't it? Okay, the next item is site plan reviews. This is item number 3 on the agenda, and I will hand it over to Georgian Bluffs, Steve Dolmayer, I hope I have your name right, and Zach Carson. And this is with regards to parking lot line repainting report. Hi, Zach.
Hi, thanks for having me today. Just a quick report. We're doing some parking lot repainting, and with the review of the parking lots there, it's been quite some time since we've painted both of these lots. One location is at Sarawak Family Park on Grey Road 1, and the other location is actually at the township office. As part of the review, before we go about repainting, we wanted to make sure we are meeting some accessibility requirements, being some spaces at both locations. Specifically at Sarawak Family Park, we've recently undergone some accessibility upgrades to a washroom there, and there's a pathway that's planned in the not too distant future as well. So we're just making sure we are meeting our requirements, as well as making sure we were making those places as accessible as possible. So I included some very quick drawings. We're not really remaking anything in too much. We're basically repainting where a lot of lines are already existing. Just considering a couple of new spots to add some accessibility, both type A, type B spots. So you'll notice I did add 2 drawings for both locations, and just some brief information in the report. And I am definitely open to any comments or considerations.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Zach. Does anyone from the committee have any questions or need to feel the need to make any suggestions to Zach. I did have an opportunity to read the report, and I looked at the document showing the parking lot, and I know the building. I've been there before. And so it's easy for me to visualize what you're planning to do as far as repainting the parking spots. And it's never easy when you're having to go over an old lines and then creating new lines. And we had to do that in our building where I work, in our parking lot. And so you're putting in the access aisle that you never had before. So I commend you. It was a great report and easy to read. So thank you. Does anyone else on the committee have any questions for Zach? No? Okay.
So Catherine,
Yes.
Kathy Mino here. I'm just wondering, normally we do a resolution that says something about supporting,
Yes.
or I should have had that prepared, but do we want to do one of those?
I think we should. We certainly can help them move forward with this. If we can do a resolution and offer it back to them, it will help them push it forward, I assume.
Okay, I'm just going to pull up a set of minutes that we can pull that from. And I should have had that in advance. I'm sorry, everybody.
That's okay.
Kathy, if we said something along the lines of that the accessibility committee supports the proposed parking lot line repainting at
George and Bluffs.
George and Bluffs Municipal Office and Sarawak Family Park, would that be sufficient?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Tara.
So we just need a mover and a seconder, I guess.
Andy, are you moving it? And then, okay, and we just need a seconder? I can second it. Or Dwight, there he is with his hand. Great, Dwight.
Okay, Brooke, if you want to move in second, you can just say.
Sure. I can second.
Okay, we're good on this one, I think. I just wanted to make sure that you were good.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, please do, Brooke. Speak up. Okay. Is that good, Kathy?
Yeah, I think we're
Okay.
So then we have to do all those in favored and carried or not.
Okay. So that's right, because we have enough for quorum. So all those in favor then? Okay, Brooke?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I guess it's carried.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Zach.
Thank
Okay, the next item is again, another site plan review, which is the Hanover site plan report. And this is with regards to an apartment building concept and, well, actually 2 apartment building concepts with regards to their site plans. And that would be presenting to us is Dawn Tedford and Andrew Wilkin.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Oh, there you are.
I don't see Dawn on here, so I will start if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we seem to have a few apartment buildings that are interested in coming to town. So presently, the 2 you have in front of you, I wrote this small write-up just giving a bit of background, and prior to that, there was just a site plan of where the property sits in relation to the existing streets. So if everybody has that, I'll just maybe hit the bullet points on both and just maybe open it up for some preliminary conversation. This is just a concept right now. They're both going through the variance process in public meetings. So knowing if everything gets approved, it would go to a site development agreement and we can start to incorporate some of these ideas we have. So with that said, the first property is listed as 434 18th Ave. It's a 4-story apartment, no commercial space at all. Levels 2 through 4 are units, 7 units per story. And the first floor has parking in the footprint itself. So on the ground level where you would see the entrance, you'd walk in, there would be a small lobby, stairs and an elevator that would take you up to your floor with your unit. The site plan shows where the entrance is located. It's got 2 arrows at it and where the proposed sidewalks are currently. I feel like there'll be some conversation on that. There's maybe a better route to get out to the sidewalk than through the parking lot that's currently shown, but we can have some conversation on that. I would say both of these properties presently are looking at a spring start if it works. So we've got a bit of time to talk about that. Should I stop at that property and we talk about it before I proceed, or should I do the bullet points on the second one as well right now?
I think you're okay to go ahead with the second one as well.
Okay.
And then we can have discussion at the end. Yeah.
Okay.
And hopefully everyone read the material before.
Yeah, okay. The second one, on my report, I just put the closest intersection. The address is actually, I think, 651 23rd Ave now, but for the purposes of this, we'll just leave it as it is. It's 2 proposed 6-story apartment buildings, 71 units in each. I noted on here 150 parking spots kind of enclosed on the property. We've pushed that to about 180 is what we're trying to get to. Presently, with how much that's developed in that area, their street sidewalks haven't extended to this property yet, which would have to be start of a site development agreement to extend the sidewalks. There is no sidewalks on 14th Street right now, and there's very limited on 23rd. So the main entrance would be on the inside of the site, so not facing the 2 abutting streets. They would actually be on the inside facing the parking lot. I believe the site plan shows an arrow on both buildings where that main entrance is being proposed. Again, it's 18 meters in height. They're looking to start hopefully in the spring as well. So we've got about the same amount of time for that as the first. So with that, maybe you guys can open it up for discussion or conversation or whatever you would prefer.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for Andrew or any comments that you want to make? Andy, did you have your hand up? Sorry.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, I am completely unfamiliar with the planning process, so I'll just shoot anyway. Is there, it may be premature, but has there been any discussion on any affordable units or accessible units in either one of the complexes or buildings?
Yes, specifically the larger development, the 2 6-stories, there is, we don't have a layout plan, but the building code does indicate that there has to be a certain percentage that are accessible. So that would come out and figure those numbers as we develop the concept and the drawings a little bit further. But yes, there would be affordable. That is the intent, affordable housing. The term affordable, maybe the definition needs to change a little bit as we go. I don't even know what that is anymore. But yes, that is their hope and that's their intent. Both of these are rentals. They're not condos or for purchase. So that's what both owners have implied is affordable. And yes, there will be certainly some units in the larger facility that are barrier-free, universal, whatever we'd like to call them. Absolutely.
Okay. Just one other question, and just because I am so unfamiliar with the process. So around the affordability issue, like, is that a county decision whether or not they have that within their housing or their whatever the budget is that would pay for that? I realize it's probably a provincial grant, but I've heard some discussions on the local news a few months ago about an increase in affordable housing. So just for my own knowledge, I was wondering if anyone on the committee actually are participating today. How does one go about, a developer go about obtaining affordable housing units?
Yeah, if you don't have any knowledge of it, I shouldn't be giving it to you because I'm not sure the right answer. So if anybody else would like to chime in, that would maybe be best. Don Tedford, the CBO of Hanover, he would likely be able to give some guidance on that, but I don't see him on there. So if nobody has a comment, I can maybe find a little more information and provide that to you, Andy.
Sure, you could just send it via email through Kathy.
Okay.
Thank you.
That would be great. And our communications officer has just sent a little note to say that there is a YouTube video about that. So I can also include the link to the YouTube video.
Great. That's great. Anyone else have any comments or questions for Andrew? Yes, Dwight.
Thank you, Catherine. I know it's very, very early in the process. Lighting is a concern around both these buildings, and I realize the drawings don't indicate any of that, but that's something you'll keep in mind as the project goes ahead.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. You're talking exterior lighting, whether it be off the building or in the parking lots or what that might be.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's to mainly around, say, the accessibility places on both projects. It's very good, and there's no way of telling the sidewalk layout, accessibility and all that stuff. It's very vague, but again, that's something you look at.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right, just where the project is and how much time they've put into it currently is, kind of in relation to where it is in the planning process and with the town in terms of its approval process. They've come up with a basic concept, and I think once they know that they have the support of the Committee of Adjustment, Town Council, then I think we'd start to see those drawings develop a little more, and we can put in place lighting and really anything we talk about that we think would be for the betterment of the site plan.
So Kathy, speaking, this is a good time just to talk about what are the accessibility considerations that are going to be coming forward, because that sometimes can spark a little conversation where somebody might think of something based off of one of your thoughts, rather than sometimes when you have a big picture, it's almost too big to tease out what's important to think about when you're moving forward.
Yes, and I'd like specifically, if I can jump in, specifically on the two developments with 2 apartment buildings, I'd like some input on sidewalk locations on the property, direct routes and comments on that regard, because that stuff is important, and that's the type of thing we can kind of bring into the drawing, because some of that would result in where that building might sit or how that building's orientated on the site. So, comments like that are very useful to us as well.
It's Catherine here, Andrew, and that was something that I picked up on just as you were talking about the site plan, that there is no sidewalk on 14th Avenue. So that's obviously a concern as to how it will be constructed, what in relationship to the building, accessing that building. And is there intersections near there that will have street lighting or,
Not
like
presently.
street?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. No, not presently. Eventually, as the area gets built out more and more, we've got some other subdivisions up there.
Okay.
At some point, the intent is the corner of 14th Street and 24th Ave, Grey County Road, or Grey Road 28. That is anticipated to have a light in the future. But down Grey Road 28 up to 10th Street in Hanover, there is no sidewalks leading up there right now. So I think all access in terms of walking would come down 14th Street from 23rd Ave, 22nd Ave, 21st Ave, which kind of works its way up to Hanover's water tower, if I can put a landmark to it.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. There is no sidewalks out there because to date, the development of the area really hasn't warranted sidewalks out that far yet. But with this development, it will. So, we would anticipate sidewalks, yes, on the 14th, down 23rd, and where they stop and start with, kind of up for discussion and how the site development agreement comes about.
Okay, yeah, because the only concern I would have would be like for future, if these buildings end up having accessible units, as Andy was pointing out, that they would have audible signal lights, at the intersections, and with it being a new development and a development area that's growing, it would be a great opportunity to make that, make sure that that's done now, not later, because of it being so new. And there's great opportunity here for that to happen. And obviously, sidewalks will be built to code under the act. And so those, widths of the sidewalk would be looked after under the AODA section of the code itself. And, again, getting into public spaces and that type of thing. Yeah, that's great. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, Dwight.
And just not to keep harping on things, the drawings, I realize, are just very, very preliminary, and your drawings indicate drop curves, and some places are right, some places are not. And it's so important that the drop curves are in front of where the unloading areas are and not away from it. And on, I believe it's the 14th Street apartments, there's no indication on the sidewalk when the handicap spaces are used on the far right on 24th. There's no indication when they're coming over to that sidewalk if there's drop curves there and so on to get up onto the sidewalk. But I know it's very, very early in the stage, and it's just all these things are, I think they're important that maybe once the project goes ahead, we get another look at it, just so we can have one last look and say, yeah, that looks real nice and so on. Yeah,
I think I would agree with that. I think the point of this, at least in my view, certainly was just to kind of start the conversation, show you what was coming up for us. And yes, as we get a little bit more of a development with a plan, we would resend that off with some more information. And then I think we can maybe work some firm comments into the plan.
Yeah, that's great, Andrew. And thanks, Dwight. I agree with you. I was actually going to mention that as well, that was there any opportunity for us to have another review because of the fact that it is in the preliminary stages of this. It would be great for us now that we've got this in our minds to give maybe some more thought to it. And then when you do have the opportunity to come back and present again to the committee, certainly we would help in any way that we can, and making those, comments and suggestions that, as a committee, we would love to see happen.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to speak on how far the design is behind the scenes that we don't know of, but I'm guessing if this moves through the planning process in the town and they get the green light, I would think, by early 2022, we should see some plans developed enough where we can get them to a point where we can send them off and get some additional comments and maybe some firm notes we can pass along to the developer for these two projects.
Okay, great. Kathy, you have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks, Andrew, for bringing these forward. And I know it does seem early in the process, but to get the thoughts going around where does accessibility fit into these projects, I think it's great that they come to the committee as early in the process as possible, because once the drawings are done, it's kind of hard to backtrack to say, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. Whereas talking about it at this stage helps with the development of the drawings so that there aren't many revisions required in the end. That it has a good flow, that the lighting's considered, that the slope of this ramps are appropriate and in the right spot, that the automatic doors open the right way, and all the things. So thank you. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Okay, no other questions, I assume, for Andrew? Brooke, did you have any questions?
The only comment I would have is if about like any intersections that would there be like I can't remember that technical term, but like the bumpy spots at the edges of the curbs for people who are blind or visually impaired.
So tactile features?
Yeah, I just don't know what the technical term is for it.
Yeah, that's okay.
So just thinking about that, because it's easier to add it in when you're putting in the sidewalks versus putting it in later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good comment and something we'll take back to the developer as well. Sure.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brooke. Okay. Thank you, Andrew, for your submission and being here to explain to us. Hopefully going forward, we'll have another opportunity to weigh in and give some more of our expertise into it. Dwight had another question here.
Not a question, Catherine, just a comment. I wonder if the committee should accept this through a motion as information only.
Okay.
So it's still open and knowing that, thinking
We
we're going
have
to bring some other stuff back, that's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so I had my hand up. It's Kathy. Just to say that the clerk and deputy clerk had been working on a resolution in the background. So I think Tara has something ready to go, I think.
Yes. So Dwight, we have, I'll just read it out first, that the comments from the Great County Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee be forwarded to the town of Hanover in support of the proposed site plan reviews related to the apartment building on 18th Ave and at the intersection of 14th and 24th in Hanover. So I will list those comments out individually in the minutes, and then Kathy will forward them on.
Okay. So Dwight.
That's great, Tara, but I just wonder if we should maybe go on a little further and say that it's mainly early in the stages and we are just accepting this as information at the time. It's just that we need to leave the door open so that the developer and so on, as the process comes, more information will definitely be coming back before they proceed.
Okay, I could work that in. That's up to probably Andrew, Kathy. Does that sound like that will work for you?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Okay, I'll add in that the site plans come back to the committee on their completion or something along that lines.
Andy,
just
did
make
you have a
sure-
question?
That's fine. No, yeah, we'll bring them back as they develop, something along those lines.
Okay,
It was just further to that point that maybe remove the word support and say it's received the
Yeah.
preliminary site plan and have made comments back, right, and remove the word support.
Okay. Is everyone clear on that, or would you like me to read it back?
yeah, could you read it back, Tara? Sorry.
No, that's okay. Just give me one moment. That the comments from the Grey County Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee be received, and that the site plans come back to the committee as they develop.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that? Andy? Yeah. Dwight? Okay. Brooke?
Sounds good.
Okay.
So we do
So,
need a mover and a seconder, I think, for those.
yeah. So I'll move it.
Sorry, the chair is unable to move a recommendation.
Oh, I
Sorry,
know,
Catherine.
Heather, that was a faux pas on my part.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Dwight is going to move it. Do we have a seconder? Andy, thank you. Okay, motion carried, or resolution carried, sorry. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Andrew. Okay, the next item is Gray Road 4 and Bruce Street North Police Station. And this is with Wes Gray and Carl Shiprack.
Hi, everybody. It's Genevieve, not
Oh.
Carl. Carl's not able to join us today, but on his behalf, I would like to just bring this to the committees. And what we're looking for is any input or suggestions that could enhance or improve this proposed building. So what's happening is the proposed facility is a new police station. So only limited portions will be open to the public at all. And those are the pieces we're focusing the accessibility factors on for the public attending. It's a single floor building. It'll be at the southwest corner of Gray Road 4 and Bruce Street North in Durham. So just at the curve there, sort of between our municipal office and the curve around down into the town of Durham. The estimated construction value is approximately $10 million. The public will have access to the entrance, to the public reception, the washroom, and the community room. So I know, I didn't see Carl's report included in the package, but I know there's conceptual drawings. And I did want to be clear that we don't have any architectural drawings yet. These are just conceptual. So we're in the very early stages. We're tendering now for those construction drawings. So there is an opportunity. We're still early in the process. If there's improvements that we can make, we'd certainly like to know now. In your package, you can see the floor of the proposed building will be at the same height, at the same level as the sidewalk. There's no ramp required to get in the public door. And the main entrance will be accessible with push button activated doors. The washroom is a universal washroom and definitely built with the amenities and everything required by the Ontario Building Code, keeping that accessibility piece in mind as well with the code. So the outside of the building, you can see, I guess, the picture that really shows this is the last document, shows the entrance vestibule, and there's a public reception area off of which there's a universal washroom, and there's also a door to a community room or a briefing room. So those are areas that would be open to the public. And at this time, we think we're doing a good job on accessibility, but would really value any input or suggestions from the committee as well. So I hope I can answer questions. I may have to get back to you with an answer from Carl if I can't.
Okay, thank you, Genevieve. Dwight has a question.
Very impressive building, and it's great to see it's brought to the committee at such an early stage. I guess I'm looking a little bit more in the future with this very impressive building, which will be and was done. Instead of we continue to go to the 6-inch diameter push button on front of all these buildings and so on. And there's so many different products out there now, instead of the 6-inch diameter push buttons that a person could use. And it's just so much more, a lot better for accessibility and so on, for clients that are in a wheelchair and such. And I just wonder, would you consider upgrading from the, I'll use a very, very cautiously, cheaper 6-inch buttons to a more improved, more modern type way of accessing to the building?
Absolutely. And if that's, if there's information I can bring back for Carl to consider and to discuss with while we're getting these construction drawings worked on and with the architect, absolutely, that's what we're here for. So no guarantees on what the end result will be, but definitely if there's an option that is better and moving forward, keeping up with the times, we certainly don't want to, not in a building of this scope, we want to get it right.
Andy, did you have a question?
Just a couple, and based on your initial description of where the process is at in the building. I had a very, very brief career in law enforcement, and prior to my injury, and just concerning ourselves with what's open to the public, maybe a bit short-sighted in a brand new building, because certainly having some of the relationships I established when I was going through my training process and with some police officers from other forces, certainly people who've had catastrophic injuries, they fill administrative positions within the force if they're young,
Sure.
particularly. Also, I've known a few gentlemen in wheelchairs have spent a night in jail. So just maybe things to consider.
And thank you so much for that, Mr. Underwood. I really appreciate those comments. And I do want you to know, and the committee to know, that all of those pieces have been taken into consideration, that it's a very different sort of build than perhaps what would have been built a decade or 20 years ago, that those open spaces to allow for employees with mobility devices, wheelchairs, whatever they need, the space is there to move around. For the desks and the washrooms with that universal washroom build are all accommodating accessibility needs, including with mobility devices and wheelchairs. And as for the Sally port, I'm not too sure about the details on that, but yes, you're right. Those cells are welcoming to everyone and all.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure they'll make sure they can get them in there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Brooke, you have a question?
Is this when we talk about like signage?
Sure, yeah.
So for signage, like I'm blind. So one of the concerns I would have would that the signage be readable for people who are low vision, but also for maybe even having the tactile braille on the signs as well, if possible. Because like a blind or visually impaired person may need to find like the bathroom, and you don't really want them to walk into somebody's office if they don't know where the bathroom is.
Right.
It's
That's
kind
a
of
pretty good
embarrassing.
point.
I've done it before.
I'll definitely bring those comments back. The signage on the doors, we're a long way off, but this is the time we want to try to capture those ideas. Definitely. Thanks for that suggestion and your help with that.
Thanks, Brooke. And Kathy.
Thanks. I just wanted to add in about sound, so that people who have anxiety disorders and such, something that will buffer the sound to not have it a big echoey space. And again, Dwight's lighting point, just to think about.
I'm just making notes here, Kathy. Thanks for that. I'm sure there will be, do you mean in the open office area for the sound? I'm sure there'll be some separation, but I don't know if quite that has been taken into account, and I will definitely take that back to Carl and talk to him about that for sure.
It's really a more global thing, because
Right.
the acoustics affect all kinds of things, even like productivity, privacy of information. So just to consider in the developing of the plans, what is that going to look like? If you're going to have 12-foot ceilings, is the sound going to bounce around all over the place and make privacy a challenge? Like just things like that, just to think about for the people who are the architects and the approvers.
Right, that's a really good point, and I will bring that back. I'd also like to assure the committee that the design architects involved have done a number of police stations, both for municipal forces, for the RCMP, for the OPP over the years, and they certainly understand. They understand what they're doing, but whatever we can suggest to highlight in there to improve accessibility, we will. So it's definitely the privacy and the workspace. That would be more on an impact on the employees to make sure that there's accessibility requirements met for the staff on that side of things. Definitely great ideas. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Genevieve. We appreciate you being here today and presenting the concept to us. Does anyone have any other questions from the committee? No? Okay. Tara, where is she? Do we need a resolution on this one as well?
Sure, I can draft one. It'll probably be similar to the original one that I had mentioned. So just give me a moment to draft that up quickly.
Okay. So basically, Genevieve, I think what we were looking at is possibly having opportunity to come back because it is in the concept planning stage right now, that we would have another opportunity, before the build and, probably before the final site plans are approved, that we would get an opportunity to have a final review.
That sounds excellent, Catherine. I think that's pretty much what Carl was expecting. That before we got too far down the road, he did want to present the concept. And as we get some construction drawings coming together, and there's something a little more tangible for the committee to review and either approve in principle or make suggestions for improvement, we'll get there. We'll be back. with
That's
that.
great. That's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The intention is for that to come back to the committee. The motion would be that the comments from the Grey County Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee be received and that the site plans come back to the committee for further comment as they develop.
Okay, yeah. Do we have a mover? Andy? And a seconder?
Second, it's Brooke.
Okay, thanks, Brooke. Okay, and our resolution is carried. Thank you, Genevieve, for your time.
Madam Chair, we should vote on a motion when it's put on the floor.
Oh, sorry. Yes, definitely. All in favor? Did we hear you, Brooke?
Yes, they've decided that they are also in favor.
Oh, perfect. We have more votes. Okay, carried. All right, next item on the agenda is the trails upgrade considerations by Stephanie Lacey-Avon and Kathy.
Thank you, Catherine, and good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully everyone's had the chance to review the report that was put together both by Kathy and me. So it's with respect to a specific county forest property. So just to provide some background information, the county applied for a funding application that was with the efforts of revitalizing and improving outdoor recreational properties, recognizing through COVID, they've become really important. And so we were successful in receiving some funding through a federal grant. And we did receive $3,000 specifically to be put toward an accessibility ramp at the St. Vincent Track Lookout. And I can share my screen later on in the presentation, but for those of you that aren't familiar with where the St. Vincent Tract Forest property is located, it's in the municipality of Meaford. And to access the St. Vincent Tract property, you do have to travel along the Georgian Trail from the nearest parking location. And you'd have to travel around, calculated, it's about 1.43 kilometers just to get to the entranceway location of that forest property. So that would be to access this potential new accessibility lookout. And 2 years ago, we did do modifications to that trail that would now be deemed as the most accessible trail in our county forest properties, but it doesn't fully meet the objectives or criteria under the accessibility AODA standards because it's not fully considered a recreational trail. So I wanted to talk to you guys today just with respect to next steps and different considerations that we've talked about internally. So generally, we're wondering whether there are additional options to consider for accessibility amenities along the county's rail trail or forest properties other than the accessibility ramp. So the proposal we have today, so the St. Vincent Tract has recently been upgraded to have one of the county's most accessible trail sections. And this trail today has a lookout platform. Their images are attached to the report. There has been some consideration and discussion on whether this lookout platform could be modified for accessibility purposes. And in order to do so, we would need to replace the stairs with a ramp, replace railing posts with material that allow for a less obstructive view, and regular maintenance of vegetation would need to take place such that we'd have to clear lots of the trees that are currently obstructing the view to the bay. So recognizing we only have $3,000 with the limited funding received, we are wondering whether there would be other considerations from this committee for other amenity needs along the county's rail trails. So the rail trail right now runs from the city of Owen Sound all the way to the south of the county and connects into Dundalk. So it's about 77 kilometers in length. Some options and considerations that we were thinking about that could tie into the general vision and goal of accessibility would be thinking about potentially including additional rest locations, so benches, or looking at the enhanced provision of shade. And so through this discussion and question we have today, it was more so, does this committee see the St. Vincent Tract property as the most optimal location to allocate the $3,000 funding toward creating that accessible lookout, or would the funds potentially be better spent in areas where, for example, the rail trail, where accessibility to the trail is potentially viewed as a bit greater, in that you wouldn't have to, there's multiple connections to that rail trail. It does extend from the south all the way to the north of the county. And so it was generally a question of, are we looking at the type of proposal and application that would have the greatest benefit for the greatest good ultimately? So that's the question I have, and looking to hear some thoughts. And I can also offer some clarification if there's any further questions.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yes, Dwight.
Thank you very much. Great report. I'm just wondering, since the county is spending a tremendous amount of money on that rail trail going down to Dundalk and so on, in my opinion, I think it would be better money spent to put towards signage for accessibility and so on and so forth through that section of trails as we're redoing it. The trail over Meaford, we've tried 2 attempts to try and have this committee go and visit that site, which we've never been able to do it yet, but hopefully it'll happen somewhere in the near future. I'm just wondering, maybe it might be money better spent if we put towards the big trail system right now. It's just my opinion.
And I have a question as, as far as the funding goes, are you bound in that funding specifically to modifying the lookout point, or can you request, are you able to request to spend the money elsewhere?
That's a good question, Catherine. I haven't gone through and investigated that specifically with the those that had issued the funding. However, through the funding application, there were specific conditions in which we needed to speak to accessibility. And so if through my perspective, if we're able to present alternatives that still speak to accessibility as a vision, then that's what we're looking to present, should this be a desirable outcome as discussed today. And so that hasn't been confirmed, but it's something that we need to have further discussions. However, prior to doing so, I wanted to make sure we connected with this group to ensure that we were working toward a collective vision. And I just wanted to add one additional thing to speak further to Mr. Burley's comments with respect to the county's recent commitment, which hasn't been formally passed just yet, but formal commitment to allocate a lot of funding toward completing the stone dust of the rail trail, which would be completing sections around 35 kilometers that extend all the way to Dundalk. And stone dusting is a type of material that does make it a bit more accessible, and it's a bit more pleasant, enjoyable to travel on if you're cycling or walking. And so, yes, to Mr. Burley's comments, there is going to be significant funding allocated toward the upkeep and revitalization of this trail. And so recognizing that that is on our radar, that we maybe need to look at signage, as the signage along the trail is really, really old. So yeah, additional considerations for accessibility are something that we've recently had discussions about.
Okay. Brooke has her hand up. Brooke.
Hi. So I think ramps are definitely needed, but like being new to this area, I haven't actually been on that trail yet. But if the ramp was to be installed and the changes made to the outlook, how easily can somebody with a wheelchair or a mobility device like access that outlook? So once the ramp is installed, once everything is good, can they even get to that ramp? That would be my question, because if a lot of stuff needs to be done in order for somebody to be able to get from, say, a parking lot or an access point to that ramp in order to get to the outlook, then maybe things like rest stops or like upgrades to signage might be a better place, because it's great to have the ramp, but if you can't get to that ramp, then who's going to use it?
I can share my screen really quickly if that works for the committee, just to share where the map is, if that works.
I'm
Sure.
blind, so it's not going to help
Sorry.
me, but it might
Yes.
help everyone else. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
new to the area. I just moved in September, so it's just I'm not
Apologize.
familiar.
So yeah, for context, Brooke, it is it's outside of any settlement area, this forest property. So it's within the municipality of Meaford. It does abut Highway 26. However, this location, so again, it's about 1.4 kilometers to the trailhead. It would be the closest parking lot to access the trail. And you do have to travel along the Georgian Trail, which is it's a non-motorized trail. It's an old rail bed. And it is, I believe it is stone dusted. It's gravel in nature. And so I'm not going to speak on behalf of those that have mobility aids as to whether or not this would be desirable and or achievable to even access this trailhead to take advantage of that lookout point. So those are, yeah, just to provide some mapping context.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. Does anyone have any questions for Stephanie? No. My only concern with the outlook or lookout is, just looking at cost. I suspect that, swapping out the stairs and putting in a ramp that is like a 1-to-10 ratio, also removing the rails and putting in plexiglass or something like that would allow for the view, is going to be quite costly, probably more than the $3,000 funding that you received. Has there been any costing, has there been any estimation on the materials, Stephanie? No, okay.
Not at this point. And yeah, you raised some really good thoughts, Catherine. And this is partly why we are talking to the group today, because that was on our radar, that we had suspicions that the cost to make those upgrades would be quite a bit more than $3,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, just with the cost of lumber right now, going with probably a pressure treated type of material. Yeah, I would think that the cost would be a lot more than $3,000. Brooke, you have a question as well? You have your hand up.
Oh, sorry, I did not mean to have it up. I forgot to put it down.
That's okay, no worries. Yeah, Kathy, any thoughts or additional comments?
I don't really have anything further to add. I like that the thoughts that the committee has presented.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wonder about the resolution in the report and if we need to do anything with it.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly agree with, probably at this stage, you have signage that obviously I don't know the trail that well. I mean, I really have to say I only know a certain section of the Georgian Trail and basically the section that runs from Collingwood to Meaford and not beyond. And I don't even know this lookout area on the, off of the Georgian Trail in Meaford. So I've not been there and I'm not aware of it. But I think Dwight brings up a good point about maybe spending, using the funds and looking at something that already exists on the other, like on the rail trail, that, you have signage that needs to be replaced or renewed, and resting areas. I don't know what the cost is to that. I know I just, just in Collingwood, my family just purchased in memory of my father a bench for the Harborview Park. And, to have the bench installed with a cement base and a plaque is $1,500. And, that's just a bench, right? Like to some people, that's just a bench. But, it is a resting place for everybody utilizing the park. And, so I don't know how far you're going to be able to stretch your $3,000, but certainly signage would seem a reasonable start, a reasonable area to spend the funding on. So I think we're all collectively probably in favor of that as a committee. Is everybody fine with yes, Kathy?
Okay, so I probably should have mentioned this a little earlier, but really when we have a report to consider, the resolution gets moved and seconded, and then we have the discussion, and then we vote on it. So the recommendation in the report, I think, is good the way it is. It says that report PDR JAAC 2421 be received, and that staff use the input provided by the Grey County Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee to guide decisions for Grey County Trails upgrades.
Okay. Yeah. So is everybody in favor of that resolution? Yeah.
Catherine, you do need a mover and a seconder first,
yeah,
before we get to vote on that.
I can move it.
Okay, Brooke is moving it as seconder. Andy? Okay, and now we need to vote on it. Everyone in favor of it? Great.
Yes.
Brooke? Perfect. Okay, carried. Thanks, Kathy. And thank you, Stephanie, for presenting.
Thank you.
Your report was excellent, both of you.
Thank you, Catherine. And to the committee, we are doing a comprehensive analysis of our signage along the rail trail. And so, provided we do get the go-ahead from the issuers of this grant, we will be connecting back with this group in the foreseeable future, just with respect to signage that will be modified and implemented and changed along the rail trail. So we'll keep you posted and connected as we proceed. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so we can move on to the next report. And this is the Grey County 2021 Accessibility Compliance Report. Kathy.
Okay, so the resolution is that report CCR JAAC 0921, Grey County 2021 Accessibility Compliance Report be received, and that the 2021 Accessibility Compliance Report be endorsed and submitted to the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility.
Okay, so discussion, Dwight.
So moved.
Do we have a seconder? Andy. All in favor?
Oh, let me present my
Oh,
report.
sorry, Kathy.
Okay.
No, wait, we're gonna move right along.
So the
Sorry,
intent of
Kathy.
that's all right. The intent of the report is to meet accessibility legislation. The province every 2 years requires us to submit a report. The last report we submitted in 2019, we didn't have any compliance issues. We were fully compliant and everything was great. This report, we do have 2 areas where we don't quite meet compliance. So one of them in 2021 in January, WCAG 2.0, which is the technical term for website compliance. Those requirements are very challenging to meet consistently. Many municipalities I've spoken with in my peer group have said that they will be reporting non-compliance on the WCAG portion of the report. And staff are proposing that the same for Grey County. The other area is since the last report, Grey County has started the Grey Transit route, which is a conventional transit system. And even though it's a conventional transit system, there are accessibility compliance requirements attached to that. Generally speaking, I have to say that the conventional transit legislation has been created and designed with larger communities in mind. And so for the Grey Transit route, some of those are quite cost prohibitive and Grey County was not able to comply. But there have been some workarounds created to be as accessible as possible. So part of that is lifting ramps, portable bridge plates, electronic pre-boarding announcements that are not on the vehicles that the third party provider has for the service. However, the drivers do audibly announce the stops. There is a paper copy of large written what the next stop is that's progressed through on each of the buses. And the booking system for the Grey Transit route is done by personal contact. So you can either book online or by the phone. And when you call in or sign in to book your ticket, if you have an accessibility requirement, a different vehicle is booked through another provider. And that bus then runs in tandem with the other bus so that the service is very streamlined. So those are the ways that Grey County has done as best as it can to meet the accessibility requirements for the transit. And I should backtrack a little bit about the website compliance. So the piece that's really tricky for that one is PDF documents are really challenging to make them compliant, and the whole website converts everything to PDF. So you could have a Word document that is accessible, but when it's converted to PDF for the website, it misses aspects. So our IT department is actually working on redeveloping the main grey.ca website, and with a view in mind that these are challenges that we need to overcome. That's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay. Any questions or concerns from the committee members? Yeah, the only comment I have, Kathy, is that when they initially came out with that section of the AODA, I had some real questions around the WCAG. Just, knowing the cost that's involved in websites, just in websites alone, just websites, period. but then to make the websites accessible and to the requirements that they're asking municipalities and counties to adhere to, basically, and to put, these are the requirements. It's not surprising. I know of other municipalities that are in the same situation where they're just having difficulty getting around it. And with the transit, what I wanted to add there is that the accommodations that have been put in place, I would think would be suffice. I mean, I agree with you. The act, going back to the act again, was really designed for transit when you really look at it for bigger urban areas. And, to put in those accommodations is, again, it's a cost measure. And, so, taking the cost measures into consideration, I think, certainly being in non-compliance for those two items, I would not be disappointed at that at all, because given the scope as to what the county would have to do in order to be compliant, it's a lot to ask. In my opinion, it's a lot to ask.
Well, with the blessing of this committee and council, if we submit this compliance report as it is, we'll just have to see what the ministry comes back with. I understand that they are not particularly interested in carrying a big stick, but they are interested in seeing how the submitters are moving toward compliance where they are not compliant. And so, I don't have any concerns to submit this report the way it is.
Yeah, and I wouldn't either. I think you're right. I think it's more about working toward accessibility and, meeting the goal of, a fully accessible Ontario, or, again, the word fully, I don't think will ever really be there, but to be fully accessible in whatever terms they spell it out as. It's going to take time, and we are working in that direction, and obviously the county is, so I don't think you'll have any problems with the report. Okay, so I guess we can vote on the resolution, and all in favor? Andy, I don't see Andy. Is Andy there? Oh, thanks, Andy. Brooke?
Yes.
Okay, so resolution is carried. Kathy?
Thanks, everybody.
So the next item on the agenda was reference documents. I wasn't quite sure. Was that the reference documents is just part of the agenda as to the documents that were submitted?
I probably could have removed that title because there weren't any additional. That's where I put in interesting items that people might want to have a look at, but that we don't actually have to talk about. But there aren't any this time.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. All right, and so under other business, a discussion on how to submit site plan information so it is as accessible and meaningful as possible.
Okay. I will take that one on. It's Kathy. Andrew Edgecombe had connected with me when this agenda was being created and asked me about this. And so I said, I think that's a great idea. Let's put it on the agenda for discussion. And then in the meantime, the municipalities that submitted site plans for review, I asked them if it was possible to submit a corresponding report that gave some descriptive features and descriptive content about the projects that they were submitting for consideration, so that we would have words to describe the pictures that can't be seen by everybody, and to make the whole thing just a little bit more understandable. I think today that's worked out really well. Georgian Bluffs, Hanover, and West Gray all provided us with that descriptive content. So I'm interested to hear what the committee's other thoughts are, but if we could also continue on with that approach, I think that's great.
Does anyone have any comments? Dwight?
Thank you, both the Catherines. This has always been a real concern of mine. The whole idea, we have so many different members on our accessibility committee. Andrew was a prime example of, to make sure Andrew understood what we're trying to show on the screen and trying to portray. That's always been a problem, and it's something we need to be very cautious of and do everything we possibly can to make sure that it's set for the hearing or the what's the word? Visual impaired people is always been a very, very concern of mine. And yes, we're started down that road trying to improve on it, but I think we're a long ways away from coming up with a real good solution.
Yeah, I would agree, Dwight. And my thoughts on it, Kathy, are, you know, we're an accessibility committee, and, you know, we want, hopefully, you know, the majority of the information that comes before the committee to be accessible for those on the committee. And site plans are, you know, they're not always easy to review to begin with. And if you don't have a real good understanding of what you're looking at on a site plan, then, you know, it can be very confusing and it might not make any sense at all. And I thought having the written description was perfect, you know, for the three that, you know, brought their site plan reviews today. And I'd love to see that going forward, like just as much description. I don't want people to be, you know, burdened with huge amounts of work, or that this adds to a huge workload. But at the same time, we have to make sure that the committee understands exactly what it is that, you know, what is in the site plan. And you know, for Andrew, definitely having that description would be so important for him to understand what it is that they're presenting to the committee. And I particularly love the idea that more of a description, written description, you know, giving the diagrams is great, but you have to have something along with that for sure for the committee.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And oh, sorry, I've just interjected there without permission to speak.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
So Brooke and I were talking earlier because Brooke is blind, and she was saying that in Guelph, they have a committee that just looks at the site plans, and she doesn't sit on that committee. And I said, I'm hopeful that, you know, that we can come to a meaningful way because to communicate about what's in these site plans, because it's for public spaces. And so people with all abilities and disabilities are going to be accessing these public spaces. It's important for us to get input from everybody. So how we can make it as meaningful as possible so that everybody has an opportunity to say, what about this? Or what about that? Or for me, it works better if, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely, Kathy. And I know Dwight had his hand up and then Brooke. Yes, Dwight.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. I just want to say, if we could ask anyone that's presenting a site plan to us, tell them to send it to us with their eyes shut. In other words, describe every detail, like for instance, if they have 3 unloading handicap sites at the front of the building, explain it in detail with their eyes shut. And right down to there's drop curves in front of these areas to get to the building. You're 50 feet away from some form of a handicap button. In other words, do it with their eyes shut is the way they want to present it to us.
Yeah, great suggestion. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, because then, you know, visualizing it and then writing it down and then presenting it in the report. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Brooke.
Like as I said, our leader, like our city person, she was totally willing to go through these site plans with me and to point out where different things are. But I just found I wasn't able to give the same sort of detail, but I'm definitely I'm really looking forward to this idea of having these reports that may say, as Dwight mentioned, having the drop curbs at the pickup areas, that there's disabled parking at this part of the building and stuff, like just pointing out things that are accessibility wise that we might want to know about, that maybe we might have an idea of where to change it if we actually knew that they were there. And I do really like this idea. It's something I wish I had thought about it when I was over with Guelph, because it would have been something that she would have definitely been willing to try and get going.
That's great. Thanks, Brooke. And I don't think it's unreasonable for us to ask for that. I really don't, as an accessibility advisory committee to the county. But I do like Dwight's idea, create a report with your eyes closed, I mean, see it from that perspective and that individual's perspectives with, low vision and no vision. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
So,
thank you.
I mean, I know that it's just right now in discussion, but is there at some point making it a more formal request, or it's obviously something that would have to go to the building department?
Yeah, I think if we just have it in the minutes and
Okay.
and just ask, because it seemed, I don't know. What do you think, Heather or Tara?
I think having it in the minutes, and then we have a lot of our municipal representatives on the call today. So I think they can take that back to their building departments and just say that that's a request coming from the Accessibility Advisory Committee, that not only the drawings, but a descriptive written report attached to it would be beneficial to the committee. So I think that's okay.
Yeah, great. Debbie's got it doing her thumbs up there. Yeah, that's a great idea, Heather. I agree with that. Yeah. I just didn't know, whether we needed something more formal, but it makes sense that, it would go back to those departments, and, it is a request from us in a way, and a consideration, obviously, to make it easier for our members on the committee to be able to review those site plans in a meaningful way. Yeah. Okay. And I guess the next item is there any other items of business that were not added to the agenda, or no? Okay. And so I guess the next item is our next meeting date.
Okay, now I know that we're going to have some items that local municipalities are going to want finished before the year's end. So I'm wondering about having a meeting the last week of November and looking for input from everybody. I know that Tuesdays are not good for Andrew Edgecombe, so we are not going to make a meeting on a Tuesday. But is there anything else that I need to think about for a meeting date?
I'm good, Kathy, usually from Monday to Thursday. Fridays are a bit iffy.
Okay.
I find my schedule pretty available now too, Kathy.
Now that you're retired, thanks, Andy. That's great.
As long as it's the afternoon, like earlier in the afternoon, I'm good
Early-
any day.
Okay, that's good. Anybody from the local municipalities have any thoughts on that? Because you guys are the ones that are going to have to prepare some reports.
Kathy, Dwight here. The only way I can attend a meeting is to set the meeting, and I'll have to try and arrange everything to meet it. It changes so much. I really can't commit to the end of November. Set a meeting date, and I'll try and meet it.
Okay, thank you, Dwight.
Oh, and Debbie?
Yes, I agree with Dwight. This is really important for us. And so although we're going into budget deliberations the end of November, almost for the whole week in council meetings, this is really important. So even if I have to step outside of committee of the whole meetings to have our report addressed by the JAC, I'll do that. So I'll make it work.
Okay, that's great. Okay, did we want to pick a date today, Kathy, or?
I would struggle with that, but how about if I
Okay,
communicate with everybody by email and we'll try and tease out one that's going to work the best.
absolutely. Okay. Okay, I guess if there's nothing else on the agenda, then we can adjourn the meeting. And it is 3:28.
We probably need a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion. Thanks, Dwight. Motion to adjourn, moved by Dwight. I need a seconder.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you, Brooke. Okay, motion carried.
Bye, everyone. Good meeting.
Thank
Yes,
you, everybody.
yes, lovely to see everyone.
It was great meeting you all. Take care.
Kathy,
Thank